This is for people who are struggling with being single and trying to emphasize that it's not that bad. David from How to Beast says that a girlfriend should be like icing on the cake, not the reason you baked it in the first place. And I wholeheartedly agree with this. I've talked about it before, but I'm going to go into more detail here, talking about how I'm managed to view romantic relationships as a bonus, as something that is nice to have if it's there, but not the end of the world if it's not. I used to think that not having a girlfriend meant something was missing. I used to think that I should have a girlfriend back when I was in college, and it took me a year to work up the nerve to ask out the girl who said no. But over time, 6 years later, being on and off of the dating apps, seeing how few romantically viable women there were, at least in my personal opinion, I realized that mindset came from scarcity thinking, from seeing relationships as proof of value instead of enrichment, and it messed with how I saw myself. Romantic relationships should be bonuses, not baselines. It should be a nice little bonus, nice little extra. It's not something that we should expect everyone to do. Not everyone has to be in a relationship. Again, it's all just a nice little bonus, the icing on the cake, as David from How to Beast says. But without one, you're already whole. Someone else doesn't complete you, they just complement you. Now, look at it this way: life is the cake. Your health, your passions, your peace, your friends, that is the actual substance. A girlfriend, that's the icing. It's nice if it's there. It's nice to have one in your life, but you don't need to build a cake around the icing. Think about it. Society wires men to chase external validation, status, money, women. So when you're single, it feels like you're failing. But this wiring is broken. Your value isn't tied to being chosen. Instead, your value should be tied to, honestly, I'm kind of blanking on what to tie our value to. I would say just the fact that we're human, because I don't want to end up seeming like I'm putting a price on human life. You don't need a girlfriend or a wife to get out of for a reason to get out of bed in the morning. You should focus on doing something that you find fulfilling and focusing on that and building a life where you can pretty much do what you want within reason, of course. And obviously, you're still going to have some things you have to do, like you have to exercise and eat reasonably well to make sure you don't have too much, to make sure you don't get really overweight or something like that. Yeah, it is what it is, but at the end of the day, something like a girlfriend is a nice little bonus. You should not make women the center of your life. You should just enjoy them if they come your way, and if they don't, oh well. You still got a pretty good life all around using really good ingredients to make a delicious cake. Yeah, you let me know in the comments down below what you think you can tie your value to. Again, I'm not comfortable with seeming like I'm putting a price on human life. Anyway, some people will tell you you'll be lonely, but really, you can just build real friendships. Bumble actually has the BFF feature that you can use to make friends. I know a guy who's used it pretty successfully. It's also possible to make friends by doing things that you enjoy. And I'm not talking about just playing video games and all of that. There are Facebook groups you can use to do socially engaging activities like hiking, among others. Look, as an adult, the burden is on you to figure that out. Or you can just start something yourself and see what happens. Society also says you'll die alone. Unfortunately, most people do anyway to some extent, whether they outlive their spouse or there's some extenuating circumstance that brings you into that situation. Look, at a certain point, there's no guarantee that you're going to live a long life and die surrounded by everyone who loves you. Tim Pool keeps on describing that scene where someone is told that the whatever they have is terminal and asks if there's anyone that they can call. The person who had kids is going to be swarmed by kids, grandkids, etc. While the person who didn't is just going to lie there watching Price is Right reruns, and then eventually that's it. There's no real guarantee one way or the other. That's how I look at it. As I said in my video about you can do everything right and still fail. You can still do everything right with raising kids if you have kids, but there are definitely going to be external influences that can corrupt them. I mean, going full millennial here for a moment, look at the Harry Potter books. Percy Weasley, books 5, 6, and 7, he goes no contact with his family. Right up until the Battle of Hogwarts, he finally makes up with them and then finally meets his sister-in-law. The external factors of his desire for power, his ambition, that pushed him to go out and, go no contact with his family. Book 5, in the Order of the Phoenix, he chose to side with Cornelius Fudge and his "he's not back" propaganda. And then book 6, he just couldn't bring himself to admit he was wrong. And then it was something that happened at the ministry in the Deathly Hallows that pushed him to make up with his family. Yeah, let it go to show people have free will, so you never know what's actually going to happen. You do everything you can, but eventually something from beyond your control can just come in and fuck everything up. Another common argument, you're just avoiding rejection. Or you could say I'm prioritizing peace, or as Travis Wu pointed out in one of his videos, it's still up. He said something about how avoiding rejection is actually good for your health because every time you do get rejected, you get an injection of cortisol into your system from the brain. For those of you who don't know, it's the chemical that I'm gonna look up the specific explanation. Alright, according to the Google summary, it's a steroid hormone primarily known as the body's main stress hormone. So yeah, when you have too much cortisol, it can be linked to chronic stress, anxiety, high blood pressure, weight gain, sleep disturbances. Basically, if you have too much cortisol in your system, it leads to all kinds of problems physically and mentally. So yeah, it's better to just minimize the risk of being rejected and not being exposed to it. I'm not saying that you can never face rejection in life or the possibility of it, but I think it's best to I agree with Travis that it's best to minimize your odds of that. But if you want to call me a coward, feel free to let me know in the comments down below. Hogwarts sorting quiz, Harry Potter fan club sorting quiz says I'm a Gryffindor though, so sometimes there's bravery in not facing something if you don't have to. And another common argument, love is meaningful. Sure, can be, but it's still not required to have a meaningful life. You know, if you can find meaning in doing other things, doesn't have to be just like the montage of Andy's meaningful life. I think the word they used was fulfilling in the 40-year-old version. Yeah, it was meaningful life. No, fulfilling. Now I'm looking at it right now. The clip is titled Andy's Fulfilling Life. So yeah, it doesn't have to be the stereotype of the 40-year-old virgin. You can find fulfillment. You just gotta know where to look. But anyway, instead of focusing on what, yes, is admittedly a deeply rooted biological urge, focus on what fuels you. Try to look at relationships as, again, the icing on the cake, but not the end all be all. Because, like I said, external factors can come along and ruin it all no matter how hard you work to make sure that it's all good. I mean, yes, again, it's nice if it happens. I'm not going to act like it isn't, and I'm also not trying to crap on any of you who are in romantic relationships. This is for people who are struggling with being single and trying to emphasize that it's not that bad. It's actually pretty worthwhile. And you know what? Maybe it's for the better to stay single and be extremely selective. And if that means still being a virgin in a particularly old age, so be it. You're still living a life that's full, and you get to build something with or without anyone else. You know, that's what I would argue focusing on. Building something. And then holding on to it and being extremely selective about who you share that with. Anyway, it's not about being anti-love. It's about being pro-self. Not in an extremely selfish way, more of a secure your air mask before going to help someone else kind of thing. They say it at the beginning of every flight that takes off across the country. I'm saying it here. But anyway, if a girlfriend does come along and add value, like the icing on the cake, amazing. But other than that, if she doesn't show up, it's not the end of the world. So on that note, I'm going to wrap it up here for the video. I can't wait to see how all of you are going to try roasting me. But again, this is just me, and I advocate that it's good to stay single and look at it as a nice little bonus if it does come along, a romantic relationship. Not the end of the world if it doesn't. There are other ways to have a fulfilling life and not in the 40-year-old virgin stereotype. Anyway, be sure to give this video a like if you enjoyed it, and subscribe for daily videos of cultural commentary from a man caught between generations. I will see you soon.